where we are with the audience. So we've got probably 70%. If someone wants to calculate this for me, they're very welcome. But I'm going to guess that looks like sort of 70% knows roughly. Maybe 60%, which means 40% of you have been using it. And then the people that use Google Ads, Google pay-per-click, tell me, are you a beginner, an intermediate, or advanced user? So B, I, or A, just to get some idea. So we've got an intermediate, beginner. Okay. Cool, this is really helpful, thank you. And one of the other things that I'd love to know as well is, are you selling a product or a service? So, you know, maybe you're selling, well, let's not talk about business to consumer yet. Let's just simply say product or service. So P for product, S for service. So lots of products and a few services. Okay, let me bring up my slides. I'd love you to ask questions all the way through, by the way. So please do that. And please use the Q&A box. It'll be a lot easier. With pleasure, use the chat box, and I'll try and keep an eye on it. But if you really want to ask a specific question and want me to answer it, pop it definitely in the Q&A box. And I certainly won't miss it. I'd really like you to ask questions all the way through instead of sort of waiting till the end. I'd rather try and make it as interactive as possible, which, you know, is obviously difficult, not as easy on Zoom, but we can have a go, can't we? So does anyone have any questions so far? I mean, you know, what are you hoping to get out of this? Why have you come to this session? What's the key thing? And maybe just, you know, if you're just telling me, giving me an answer, just keep using the chat for now. But is there something in particular that you're hoping to get out of this? Is there, you know, what frustrates you about Google AdWords? Obviously, a fair percentage of you have never used it before, so I assume you're just wanting to sort of get a really good understanding and background. Maddie's looking for the best practices. What I've realized, by the way, is the majority of you are using the chat box, but you're only talking to the panelists, which means none of the audience, none of the delegates can see what you're saying. So in the chat box at the bottom, you've got a blue drop down, and you can change that to all panelists and attendees, and that means everyone else will get to see your answers and your name, etc. So from a networking point of view, it's better having all panelists and attendees selected. So you're looking for new clients, good understanding, best practice. As I said, if you've got specific questions, please put them in the Q&A. One last thing I'd like to ask you, are you B2B business, business to business, or business to consumer? So let's go for B for business to business and C for business to consumer. You might be both. Let's just get an understanding. So another, quite a mix again. Probably a tiny bit more consumer from what I'm seeing. Okay, cool. Right, let's get started. Let me talk to you about Google AdWords and pay-per-click. I've already been introduced, so you don't need to know a lot about me, but you can certainly find me online afterwards and continue this conversation. For those that know me, will know that I'll happily answer questions afterwards and help you get through this and help you become much more strategic and better return on investments on your AdWords campaigns. So we have got, you know, you have to bear with me. What's good is the majority of the audience is either brand new or a beginner. So I think we only had one intermediate. So bear with me if some of this is not very new. Bear with me if I'm teaching you how to suck eggs here. But I think it's really important that I try and bring all of you up to speed initially, and you know, to really help the ones that have never used Google AdWords or pay-per-click and really to help them understand. So I think it's worth just going back a few steps and thinking about web traffic as a whole. and thinking about the different types of web traffic. So organic SEO, search engine optimization, I mean, that's my bag. That's how I got into this. And so, you know, I always start with organic at the top. But organic is when someone types something into Google and your website is naturally found, and they click through, and that's then classed as organic traffic. Paid traffic is Google AdWords, Google pay-per-click. So that's exactly what we're talking about today. And that's those adverts at the top of Google. You can see an example here. It's got a little green ad, and these are paid to be there. It's a bidding war. So in effect, the more you bid, the higher you get. It's not quite as simple as that, and we'll go into the detail a bit later on. But paid doesn't just include these ads at the top. It also includes things like remarketing. It also includes things like display, and it also includes Google Shopping as well. So remarketing is where someone's been to your website and you then target them with adverts on other websites. So for example, if you go to the Jet2 website, the chances are when you go to another website afterwards, you'll start seeing Jet2 adverts. So that's remarketing. And remarketing is classed as paid traffic. And these are classed as paid. These different traffic sources is the sort of terminology that Google uses, especially in Google Analytics. And I think if you're going to be using pay-per-click and Google Ads, then it's really important you get up to speed on Google Analytics as well. So remarketing is where someone's been on your website and then we start showing them adverts when they go onto other websites. And we can do that by putting a bit of code on the website that allows Google to track if someone's been on your site and then sort of follows them around the web as things go on. If you've got an e-commerce store, which I'm guessing some of you have because consumer and products, etc., then there's shopping integration, and you can allow Google to see your full product category, and those then become part of the Google Shopping, and as people click through, you pay for those clicks. So that's all classed as paid. Display is where you do adverts across Google's network. So it's visual adverts, and you're basically not necessarily on google.co.uk, but across many different websites that sign up to using Google AdWords to show adverts on their website. And that, again, if someone sees your advert and clicks through, then that's classed as paid traffic, and it's certainly part of what we're talking about today. Social, so that's from Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, etc. Email marketing from MailChimp or many other email platforms. Referral traffic is from where you've got links from other websites. So let's say we've managed to get an amazing link from something like the BBC, very trusted website. And if they mention us and have a link to us and someone clicks through, that's classed as referral traffic. And direct is where someone types your address directly into the top of the browser and goes directly to your website. So I think it's just important that for all of us understood the different types of traffic that we could get and where we're focusing today, which is the two that I've highlighted. Now, the point of this session is to ensure that whatever you do is to be as strategic as possible and to get the biggest return on investment. So I'm afraid that a lot of this goes back to basics of running a business. And my answer is don't do any Google AdWords or pay-per-click until you have very clear business objectives. So I don't know if anyone's willing to share a business objective with me right now. Do any of you have objectives, what you're trying to achieve in your business? I'd love to see if there's some examples within the room right now. Would anyone be willing to throw one into the chat box? What your business is trying to achieve? What's the objective? What's your what are you trying to achieve? So we've got sell good tiles. We've got get new clients. Do we have any more? Growth in the US. Okay, from Harvey. Any more business objectives? Reach and convert cold audience. Okay. Raise profile of company from Jill there. Jill, you're using all panelists. So if you want to change that to all panelists and attendees, that would be your first way of raising your profile, because other people will see your answer. So in the chat box, you can change that to all panelists and all attendees. And feel free to network during this webinar. Hopefully I'll keep you entertained the whole way through. Hopefully I'll keep you so hooked. But please feel free to use the chat box to network, you know, through your LinkedIn profiles, all sorts of different things. Mohammed's looking for new clients. Gay is looking top of mind at time of need, end of life services. Okay. So I'm assuming most of you have heard of SMART objectives. SMART objectives are specific, measurable, agreed, realistic, and timely. And what I've noticed is that none of you, not one of you, has given me a SMART objective. You've all given me woolly, not very specific objectives. And my challenge to you is to come up with something smarter. Because if you don't, then Google AdWords, you're going to waste a lot of money. And we need to be really specific and really clear. So how can you come up with a SMART objective? Well, it's around taking what you've already got and taking it just that bit further. So how do you achieve this? So let's take some examples. So here we've got, Takwirari. I'm probably not pronouncing that right, am I? Sell good tiles. Well, you know, who to? Who's going to buy your tiles? And I can hear you saying, well, anyone will buy my tiles. No. Who's the perfect person to be buying your tiles? Is it a company? Is it a residential? You know, what's the audience? But also, why your tiles? And how can we turn that into more of an objective and sell good tiles? So, you know, what you've put the word good, so I'm not sure how do you define if it was good or not. I'm going to go on to another one. So get new clients. Miriam, get new clients. Well, how many? How many do you want? How much are they going to be spending on average? What type of clients? By when do you need them by? So, you know, do you need 3? Do you need 100? Do you need 1,000 in the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? Some of this, the very easy way to work this out is using financials. So for example, I'm looking to earn X amount in the next 12 months, and therefore I need to sell X amount, or I need this many clients spending X amount with me. We sell websites. The last thing I want to be doing is selling 100 or 1,000, 200 quid websites, because I know that at that level where I'm selling a £200 website, we'll just get loads of aggro, take lots of time, we'll make no profit. Whereas I'd like to be selling 20 grand websites. That's where we do really well. And so therefore, there's only certain businesses or companies that would be willing to spend 20 grand on a website. But all of a sudden, I know exactly what I'm going for. I know the type of audience. I know the type of person. I know the value that we can add at that level, and it makes it a lot clearer what I'm after. And I know that we need, you know, how many we need over the next 12 months, for example. Here's another message here. So Maddie's put, sell 5,000 courses by the end of 2021. Brilliant. Okay, we're getting there. We've got some numbers. Excellent. The next question is, does it feel realistic? Is it something that you can agree internally? But brilliant, Maddie. That's a really good example. Jill, I mean, raise profile of company. That's a really difficult one. Measuring brand awareness, measuring profile is impossible. So, you know, how are you going to measure? If I turn around to you in a year's time and say, Jill, this money you've spent on pay-per-click, did it raise your profile? How are you going to answer that question? How are you going to define that? Growth in the US, Harvey. If I turn around to you in a year's time and say, okay, so did pay-per-click do it? Well, how are you going to define what's growth in the US? Is that a number of clients? Is it the size of business? Is it the amount? You know, what are what are the numbers that you can add on to this? So this stuff's really important, and it's why I've spent a few minutes on it. And if you don't have this in the first place, then it's impossible to get a good return on investment. So Jill, would Google Analytics tell me how successful AdWords has been? Absolutely. And we're going to be talking quite a bit about analytics and integrating it with Google AdWords. We're going to be talking about tracking and reporting. You know, is it going to tell you how successful, you know, has it raised the profile of your company? Well, again, how do you measure that? Anyone can get you loads of visitors to your website, but are they the right visitors? And are they the ones that are converting, and the ones that are, and do we know if they converted on the website? So, so what's really important is to understand exactly what they do on your website as well, and what actions they take, and whether they converted, etc. So Google Analytics on its own needs a bit more work to it for Google to understand what it is that you're trying to get users to do. So that's something else that we're going to talk about as well. Harvey, growth in the US, 200 new clients in Texas by Q3 of 2021. Brilliant. Okay, I'd say go a bit deeper, and what do those, you know, and you don't need to tell me now, by the way, but digging a bit deeper, what do those 200 clients look like? So, you know, are they spending X amount? Are they, you know, are they in a particular industry sector? Are they have they got X, you know, are they clients that have, how can you describe them? Do they have a certain number of staff? Do they have a particular department? So if, for example, they've got a HR department, is that good or bad for you? I'm not looking for this sort of stuff now, but what I'm hoping this is helping everyone is just how to be a bit more strategic and how to put these things down on paper. So once you've got the objectives, and you might have more than one, by the way, you might have 2, 3, 4, 5 objectives. My advice is to probably only have 3 as a maximum, and you can then break these objectives down. So for example, taking Harvey's example of the 200 new clients in Texas in Q3 2021, let's break those down into goals. So it might be that within those 200 clients, maybe 100 of them are going to be spending, 10 grand a year, and maybe the other 100 are going to be spending 20 grand a year, as an example. So what we would then do is break that objective down into 2 goals, and we'd say, well, okay, we're looking for 100 that are spending 10 grand a year and 100 that are spending 20 grand a year. What I find is the method that I use is OGSM, which is at the bottom of this slide. OGSM: objectives, goals, strategies, measures. Simple Excel sheet. Objectives in the left column, goals in the second column, strategies and measures. Okay, so we've got our objective. We're going to break that down into goals. What are our strategies? So strategies could be Google AdWords, Google pay-per-click, which is what we're talking about today, but it could also be social media, could be email marketing, could be telesales, could be networking, could be events, could be PR, could be all sorts of different things. So we want 100 clients in Texas by Q3. Okay, well, one of our strategies is pay-per-click, Google Ads. How are we going to measure if that's successful? Well, okay, to get 100 clients, what am I willing to spend to get 100 clients? What would be, you know, what am I willing to spend to get 1 client? And that's one of the things, the next things that you could do with working out. How much are you willing to spend to get 1 client? And how am I going to measure the success of that? So Google AdWords, there's some benchmarks that you could easily Google to find out let's say the average click-through rate. So the CTR, it's called, click-through rate. So we might find that the average click-through rate for a particular sector or industry or product is, let's say, 5% or 3%. Okay. So from our adverts, we expect 3, 4, 5% of click-through rate. On that, how many then convert into buying? Well, probably only 1 or 2%, as an industry benchmark, convert into buying. So how are we going to measure success? So what we could do is we could say, well, okay, we're going to try this campaign, and we're going to say, well, okay, it's working if the click-through rate gets above 5%, and it's working if the conversion gets above 1 or 2%. If we're sitting at 1% click-through rate and no percent conversion, it's not working. So we should stop and we should try a different strategy. So what this Excel sheet hopefully does is makes everything very clear, very strategic, and helps you look at return on investment, because what you need to do is take it all back to, right, it's going to cost me X amount. Am I willing to pay X amount to get that lead or to get that conversion? We've got a question here. Let's put this on for everyone. I'm a very small independent funeral director. We are competing with large UK and international brands, co-op funeral care. It's a very competitive sector. Can a small independent realistically compete on Google AdWords with such large competitors who have bottomless marketing budgets and invest heavily in Google AdWords? Well, the answer is yes, actually. Yeah, you absolutely can. And the great thing about Google AdWords is that you can be very targeted. You can be very niche. So, you can do a very local campaign. You could do a campaign just in a particular area. So, a 5 mile radius, for example, and you could go for sort of some niche keywords. You could bid against brand names. So yeah, definitely. As in, the co-op, for example, or Dignity, for example. So the short answer is yes, you can, and it's about thinking about how you can make it much more targeted. So, for example, local would be my instinctive answer. If we've got any other questions, please do ask. So hopefully I've made it clear about objectives and goals and how important those are and how you can break them down and how you can use them. So what will you pay for people to do? So you're going to do some pay-per-click, some AdWords. What is it you want them to do? Do you want them to fill out a form? Do you want them to pick up the phone and phone you? Do you want them to make a purchase live on your website? What are the secondary things? So if they don't do that, what else would you want them to do? So, for example, do you want to try and educate them by getting them to watch a video? Do you want them to download something to get more understanding of what you offer? Do you want them to subscribe to some content? Do you want to try and build your email marketing list by, for example, having to put in an email address to have to download something, or putting an email address in to be able to access something? So what will you pay for people to do? And that, again, is really important. Most people, or a lot of people, just go straight for Google AdWords and don't think about some of these basic things that ensure that it becomes strategic and works, and actually you get the return on investment. So what exactly are you wanting people to do? Let's just get some comments in the chat. If you got me onto your website right now, what is it you want me to do? And this process of getting me to ask you this question and type it is hopefully going to embed it and help you really focus on it and think about it. So tell me in the chat box, if I come on your website right now, what do you want me to do? So Miriam, contact me to buy. How do you want me to contact you, Miriam? Maddie, either buy, register for a webinar, or join the list. Okay. And is it in that order? First, second, third. So the first is buy, second is register, third is webinar or join the list. Join the list. We've got make a purchase. If not join the list, that's good. Click the button to say get in touch. Okay. Complete the form on my website asking for my services. Ideally, yes. Maddie, what was my question? Okay, those three. Yeah. In my funnel. Okay. So good. You're thinking about these things. And the next thing is, is that where are you going to take me to on your website? And because the great thing with Google AdWords and pay-per-click is that you get the choice to direct me to exactly where you want. So these are the things that we need to be thinking about. So what does a perfect visitor do? So we've got, I've just got some other ideas here. So we've got complete a form, make a purchase, request a callback, watch a video, read content, make a booking, make an inquiry, sign up. What are they? Let's define exactly what you want them to do. And actually, let's go back a few steps in your OGSM, objectives, goals, strategies, and measures. Let's put some of these as the measures. So we need 3% of them to request a callback. We need X number to watch a video, X number to read content. Gay, call us to make an appointment or go to our website for more information. Okay, but as Google AdWords pay-per-click, you're taking me to your website already. So that doesn't feel like a sensible objective or goal because you're already taking me to your website. So perhaps that's one of the objectives of doing the advert is to get me to the website. But once I'm there, I assume you want me to call to make an appointment. But is there anything else? And how easy is that? And how are you going to measure it as well? So this is the other thing. If you want people to ring, how are you going to measure that it came from pay-per-click? And we'll talk about tracking and measuring shortly. So we've thought about what you want them to do, and we've thought about the what you pay to get people to do. But the next question is, what do they look like? And in terms of pay-per-click, we would describe them in a few different ways. And one of them would be, what device are they using? So if you think about your ideal target audience, and maybe we should go back a little step here with regard to target audience and persona, what we call personas. So what's really important is to try and define the type of people that buy from you, and try and come up with some different target audiences. So you might have, I've worked with businesses that have 15 different target audiences. So I'm not suggesting that you just have one. You may just have one, but it's also fine to have 15. What you might then do is only focus on the top 3 or 4. You might be saying to me, well, we sell to everyone. Everyone needs this service, or anyone can buy this product. Well, they might be able to, but what I'd say is who are the people that are most likely to buy? Who are the people that are most likely to love it? Who are the people that are most likely to rate it? Who are the people that are most likely to, where you can give the most value? Where have you got the most passion? Where have you got the most experience? Where have you got case studies to show that actually this sector, we're really strong? So how can you, we sell websites to anyone, okay? Although I know that schools, when they're buying a website, first of all, when they're buying anything, they only want to buy from schools, what they class as school suppliers. They want to feel like they're buying from a company that sells to schools, that specializes in schools. They have this very strange mentality. Some of this comes down to things like DBS checks. Some of it comes down to things like understanding that if I sell to a school, I've got to make sure that we engage with governors and that we engage with the local community, and that we're not going to come in at 9 o'clock on the first week of September because we know that is their busiest week, for example, and we know we might have to do some out of hours or whatever it might be. So they have this mentality of only buying from school suppliers. So if we have a website that just sells websites, and we don't mention schools at all, the chance of that school them converting on our website is nil, compared to if we have a page set up saying we sell school websites, we understand Ofsted, we are fully DBS checked, we will increase engagement with governors, the community, parents, and pupils. We get schools. And we've got some case studies. Here's some other school websites we've done. The chance of conversion there is going to be far higher. So you may be able to sell your things to anyone, but you have to sectorize, and you have to come up with areas, niche areas. And that doesn't mean that a solicitor won't buy a website from us at all. So, so these things are really important. Just want to just check we've not got any questions. If you do, please do ask. And so we've got these different target audiences. What we then need to think about, because what that will help us do is start thinking about the types of people, maybe their job titles, maybe their income, maybe their hobbies, their interests. Because what we need to start thinking about is how they use Google, and times of day, days of week, what's their age. Because you can be targeted on Google. You can say, well, I only want to show my adverts to this particular age group, or I only want to show my adverts to this particular gender, or I only want to show my adverts. You can have different adverts for mobile, different adverts for desktop. So on a mobile device, most people will, probably want to be clicking the call button. Let's take some examples. So if I do a search for a plumber on a Sunday evening, the chances are I have got a leak and I need to phone and get a call out quite quickly. So that advert that plumber shows may be different to a weekday coming from a desktop. So, sorry, my example there was a Sunday night on a mobile. Let's say I was on a desktop on a Tuesday. Well, I might be looking for, it might be more that I'm looking to get someone to fit a bathroom. So what's the intent? Does the time of day make a difference? Does the mobile or desktop make a difference? If I'm on desktop, I'm probably wanting to fill out a form, whereas on a mobile, I'm probably wanting to click a call button. Might not be the case every time, but it's about thinking about these different things. And and the beauty of pay-per-click is that it's just loads of testing and trying. So you might think, well, Jonny, I've got no idea to the answers to any of these questions. And that's fine. But the beauty of pay-per-click is that you can test and try. And what you do is you create tests. You never just do one advert, ever. You do a number of adverts to test them against each other. So you might have 3 different adverts all running at the same time. One of them has got a big call to action, which is call us, click here. Another one is click here to fill out a form. I'm just giving some examples here. But the beauty of it is that it's in a controlled environment. So it's the same time of day, it's the same day of week, in the example I've given. It's the same audience, it's the same keywords. Let's see which advert converts the most. What we might do is then test a mobile advert versus a desktop advert. Or we might test different times of day, different days of the week. Because the reason you've come to this webinar, I hope, is to increase the return on investment. So it's not just about using pay-per-click, and I'm going to go into a lot more detail about how to use pay-per-click and Google AdWords. But the key thing is really to ensure that you've got a really good return on investment. And to get a good return on investment, you've got to make sure that your ads are really converting. And so to do that, you've got to test different adverts and work out which ones are better than others. And other things to think about are location. So do you want your adverts to go worldwide? It's going to cost a lot of money. Do you want them to go to a particular, just to the UK, just to England, just to the north? Do you want them just to a 5-mile radius? Do you want to actually test Glasgow adverts versus Manchester adverts? Maybe that's something that you could try and test. Maybe, we're not sure. Let's have a look at the data. Let's see who's bought from us in the past. Oh gosh, it turns out that actually half our customers are based in Scotland. Right, okay, let's do some Scotland adverts versus some England adverts. Let's see what happens. And let's do some testing. Any questions, any thoughts? Okay. So what's their intent? Do they need something? Are they looking for information? Or are they at the buying point? And some of this comes down to the keywords they've typed in. So you've now got to start thinking about, what do they type into Google? Are they typing a question into Google, or are they typing in, something that where they're looking to actually buy. They're actually at the are they at the research stage, or are they at the I'm ready to buy stage? Okay, so ready to buy stage is probably Googling 50-inch flat screen Sony TV. The research stage is flat screen TVs. Yeah. So it's around understanding that intent and around understanding different keywords and how you can use those different keywords for different adverts. So the sort of really detailed keywords would go directly to the conversion. The less detailed, the more broad keywords would go more to perhaps an education piece or an information piece. Think location, think desktop versus mobile. So Miriam, getting this right is beginning to sound like a lot of work. Is it realistic for a solopreneur, or do I need to outsource? So you're right, it's a huge amount of work. Don't use Google AdWords Express. I've not discussed this, but this question's made me think about it. So Google has a product, I'm not sure if it's changed its name recently, actually. AdWords Express. It's the sort of quick and easy. You can start doing a pay-per-click advert with us. We'll do it all for you. Just put your credit card in, and there we are. It's done. The chances are that that at least 50% of that money will be just totally wasted and be going to the wrong people at the wrong times. So that's the first answer to the question. Not that was your question, Miriam. In better answer to your question, I think there's a couple of things to bear in mind here. So the first thing to bear in mind is that if you were to outsource, this presentation hopefully gives you all the things to ask your agency. So this puts you in a bit more power to be able to challenge the agency and say, well, okay, have you thought of the intent? What's the intent you're doing on this advert? What's the location? It hopefully puts you in a very, very good place to challenge an agency, to ask the right questions. Could you do this yourself? Yeah, you could. And I would expect that the majority on here are wanting to try it. And I'm all for that. But for it to work and for you to get a good return on investment, it does take a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of learning. And perhaps you're ready to go on that journey, and you may well be. So I'm not sure the best answer to that question, but if there's nothing wrong with trying and doing a bit of testing. And sorry, to further this, you don't need to do all this on day one. This is about bite-sizing it down. So it's, what's terrible is how many times I start talking to a new business that's wanting us to run a pay-per-click campaign, and they might have been running it for 6 months or a year or whatever. And I turn around to them and say, okay, you spent 1,500 quid, 3 grand on this pay-per-click campaign. What's it achieved? And they can't answer the question. And so don't throw money away is I guess what I'm saying. I'm not sure if that's answered your question, Miriam, or at all. But the reality is there is a bit of work here, and some of the time as a solopreneur or an owner of our business, we are better spent investing our time in what we're good at. Maybe that's selling, maybe that's servicing clients or customers, and perhaps some of the time we're better being able to challenge, because there's unfortunately a load of pay-per-click people out there as well who are dreadful, and so what this should hopefully do is put you in a really good position to be able to challenge and ask the right questions. We are going to have a break in about 15 minutes, so hopefully about 11 o'clock we'll have a comfort break. 5-minute comfort break. If you've got any questions, please do ask. But for now, I'll just keep going. So all of this can impact thinking about who they are and what devices they're on and what their intent is. All of this can impact their mentality, their urgency, what keywords to pay for, how much to bid, the content of the adverts, and the content and design of the landing pages. Missed a question. Oh gosh, I've done some spelling mistakes, have I? Thanks, Peter. Thanks for letting me know. Maddie, where do we find the proper AdWords? I set a quick one up recently, but it must be on the express version. If you just simply Google Ads or Google AdWords, then just create an account inside there. I'm guessing you will have done what you're talking about in Google My Business or Google in your place listing. But if you just Google AdWords, that is the proper AdWords. And if you really get stuck, I'll happily help you afterwards, just to put you in the right direction. I've got another question. I keep losing these on my screen. Miriam, yes, all makes sense. It's great to understand enough to get the brief right. Yeah, good. Okay. And another question. I did it in Google Ads. Maybe I've just not dived in properly. Perhaps, yeah, that could be the thing. And I'll happily help you afterwards. So all of this can impact what keywords to use, how much to pay, the content, the landing page, all sorts of different things. No problem. So the next thing that's really important, again, to ensure return on investment, is to make sure that we are using Google Analytics and we've tied it to our Google Ads account. So what I might do just before the break, I'm going to just change, you just have to bear with me whilst I just change my share a second. So you've just got me for a second there. And then if I just take you over to this screen. Yep, okay. So bear with me a sec. So hopefully you can see my screen again. Let's just get rid of that. So we've got analytics. Okay, so this is Google Analytics. Inside Google Analytics, if you go to the settings button at the bottom left here, you will see this screen. And we've got something called goals here. Okay, we're going to just talk about goals for the next 10 minutes. And if I go to, and once we've set goals up, you can then go to, if you Google this, import analytics goals and transactions. If you've got an e-commerce store, you can import transactions as well into Google AdWords, and it talks you through how to do that. And you can just Google that to find out how to do it. And also, if you Google set up goals in Google Analytics, you will find a Google support page here, create, edit, and share goals. And this tells you how to set goals up in Google Analytics. And if I just go back to here, it's in the settings button, the admin button, sorry, and you've got the goals here. I'm just going to bring my chat box up because it seems to have disappeared, just in case any of you are asking questions. Okay, cool. So let's just talk about goals for a moment. So if I, on this page here, so we'll talk about this in a second. So what we've decided what we want people to do. So it could be phoning us, it could be filling out a form, it could be downloading something. All of these things require the user to click a button, or to click the phone number, or to click an email address, or to click a download button. What we need to do is to tell Google Analytics about these actions. Because if we don't, then Google Analytics is also meaningless data. It's great knowing that 10,000 people have been on my website. I need to know how many have clicked the telephone button. I need to know how many have filled out a form. Now you might say, well, we hardly get any forms or any telephone calls, so I don't really need to know. But if you're going to be running pay-per-click, you really do need to know. And you also need to know, was it the pay-per-click that made that action? So you could say, well, I'm going to just assume that the money I'm putting into pay-per-click is creating these phone calls. But again, without putting these events into Google Analytics, you don't know for sure. And what it allows us to do is to be able to understand if we get a phone call or an email or a form, or someone downloaded something, or someone subscribed to something, was that because they came from Twitter, from Facebook, from Google AdWords, from SEO, organic? Did they come from the BBC website? Did they come directly to our website? But the only way you can find any of this out is by telling Google exactly what you want people to do. So you need to work out what you want people to do, and then you need to tell Google. And then there's a couple of different ways of telling Google. So depending on your website, and this unfortunately does get a bit technical, as to whether I can help you all through this right now, I'm not sure. But what I need to do is to help you understand the two different ways and how they integrate with each other. So there's something called event tracking. So if you Google event measurement, Google, I think I Googled event tracking Google Analytics actually. So I Googled event tracking Google Analytics. This is tracking events on the website. And then the other thing that I Googled was setting up goals in Google Analytics. And this is the goals. Now, let me just explain this a bit further. So an event might be tracking that someone's read a blog for more than 30 seconds. Or an event might be tracking that someone scrolled down at least 50% of your page. An event might be clicking a button or clicking a link. So a link to a telephone number, a link to an email address, a link on submit this form. The goal is what you actually really want people to do. So what's scoring a goal? So scoring a goal is, well, they've actually filled out the form and they've sent it to me. Scoring a goal is they've actually clicked the telephone call and rung me. Where you might use events is in a lead up to goals. So it might be that to fill out a form, you've got to go through 3 stages. So what I might do is use events to track the 3 stages and see how many people got to stage 1, to stage 2, to stage 3 before they completed the goal. A bit like e-commerce, I want to see if they added it to the basket, they then filled out the details, they then actually submitted, because understanding these different steps can help me understand which part of the adverts are working, which part aren't. And if they don't make a purchase, then at least I can see that actually it did get people to put it in the basket, or it did get people to go to the next step. Now, the reason I bring up events and goals is because depending on your website and depending on the code, depends on how easy it is to implement either one of them. And for example, a goal is really easy to implement if you've got a contact form, and when you fill it out, it goes to a thank you page. So if you're trying to get people to submit a form and to contact you, and they just put their details in and they click the submit button, and it goes to a thank you page that's got a different URL that sort of says thank you for filling out the form, you could set up a goal very, very easily in Google Analytics by simply going to goals. I'll show you, creating a new goal. Let's call it filling out a form. Ignore my typos. We could put the destination. So the proof that someone's got that they've done the goal is that they got to the thank you page, and that was the URL of the thank you page, because I know that the only way you can get to that page is if you fill out the form. So that's a very quick and easy way to set up a goal in Google Analytics if your website goes to a thank you page when someone fills something out. Now, if it doesn't, you need to use event tracking. And if you're trying to track someone clicking a phone number, you also need to use event tracking. What event tracking does is it allows you to add some code to the button or to the link. And what that code does is it tells Google Analytics what's happened. So we've got different, so again, it could be quite complicated this, but you could just simply decide yourself what you want to track, speak to your developer and say, I want to track people that click this phone number, and I need you to set up event tracking so that I can set up a goal in Google Analytics. This is all being recorded, by the way, and will be fully available afterwards, so you can pause, rewind, and fast forward me to hopefully get a better understanding. So in event tracking, we can tell Google a few different things. So for example, we can, if someone clicks that button, we can say to Google, that's first of all, this is the type of thing that's happened. So the category, the action, the label, the value. So we can say, okay, well, it was a video they watched. The action was that they clicked play. The label is the type, the name of the video. And the value, we could say, well, okay, for everyone that clicks this, it's worth £5 to us. Because return on investment is what this webinar is all about. and therefore we need to understand what things are worth to us as well. So is someone watching a video worth anything to us? Is someone clicking the link worth anything to us? For example, if you've got a form and people fill out a form and you then email them back, let's say out of every 10 people that fill out a form, how many of those convert typically? And on average, how much do they spend? So let's say, for example, you know that in the month of January, you had 10 inquiries, 3 of them converted, and they were worth £100 each. So therefore, in January, you got £300 from 10 inquiries. Therefore, each inquiry is worth £30. So the value of someone clicking that button is worth £30. Make sense? You can use these categories, you can use these events for all sorts of different things. So it might be an event that, as I said, is clicking out a form, or it could be an event that's just watching a video. All sorts of different things. But if you can't set up a goal, you need to set up some event tracking to then take it to a goal. So let me just take this a touch further. So let's say I've got a form, but when someone submits it, it doesn't go to a thank you page because that's not how my website is set up. So what I can do is get the developer to add some code that tells Google the form's been submitted because they've clicked the button. And I'm going to give it the label of form, contact page form submitted. Okay, I can then go to my goals, and this time if I go back a step, I can change it to, instead of a destination, I can change it to an event. And I can click continue, and here I've got the different categories, actions, labels, and I can say, well, I can say to my developer, if someone clicks that button, I want you to give it the label contact form submitted. So here I can then create a goal that says contact. I typically use this way of doing it, contact -form -submitted. And I would tell the web developer to do exactly that same format so that it all matches. I know that when they fill it out, it's worth £30 to me. Yeah. I don't need to necessarily put a category or an action. That, depending on how complicated your website is, depending on how many things we're trying to track, depends on whether you use all these different fields. I'm trying to track 2 things, so therefore I'm just going to use it this way. So here we tell Google that for a goal, I really want someone to fill out that form. If they do, we've put some event tracking on the button, and therefore we can set up a goal. And here we can see that if the value, the label equals contact form submitted, we know that we've scored a goal. Okay, and then I would just save that, and that would start tracking. Miriam's asked a question: is any of this possible with a self-build website created with GoDaddy? Yes, it is. You can also use Google Tag Manager. So it's worth mentioning that you could make all of this easier with a product called Google Tag Manager. Now, I don't advocate this because I prefer to do it the proper way and ensure that the code is in the website and fully working. Google Tag Manager allows you that does exactly what I'm showing you, but in sort of a click and do it yourself way. And it's got pros and cons. There's no cost to it, but if you're really struggling and you can't get a developer, you could certainly look at using Google Tag Manager. Emma, is there a WordPress plugin for putting the codes where you need them? I don't think there is, to the sort of detail that I'm talking, I'm afraid. I don't believe there is, and we're heavy into WordPress. Not the way that I'm describing, and you know, I don't have a website developer. Well, you know, if you're looking at doing pay-per-click and you're looking for good return on investment, potentially it is worth trying to find someone that could do this. It's not a big job, by the way. I mean, the sort of thing I'm talking about here sounds complicated, looks complicated, but actually once you've understood it, it's probably only, you know, depending on what you're tracking, it's like a 30-minute job for a web developer, totally tops. So you know, it might be a 5-minute job even. So so I'd say invest in it. Okay, let's have a break. I don't think you saw these questions. I'll show you them. I answered them anyway. Let's have a break. It's now 2 minutes past. I think Rory's going to come on and put some slides on. We'll start, well, officially, I guess 7 minutes past, but we'll start at 10 past if people aren't back. So I shall see you very shortly. Okay, we'll see if people are back, and give you a moment to ask any questions. I know I gave you quite a bit on the event tracking and goal tracking, but the key thing really is to ensure that that you're very clear about what it is you're wanting to get people to do and tracking it. So important, and so many people miss this bit. And you can add some code around phone numbers to say that they've been clicked. You can add some code around buttons. You can add some code around all sorts of different things, and you can measure lots of different things. So we work with a vets. They have a vets practice. They've got 25 vets practices across the UK, so they're reasonable size. To give you some idea, they've got about 16 goals on their website, all sorts of different things, but they know, for example, that if they can get someone to watch a particular video, it's worth £1 to them, because they've worked out the conversion of what happens afterwards, the number of people that then take some action once they've watched that video, for example. So there's a number of different things, and they've also there's another company we work with where they want you to fill out, it's for a law firm, and it's a divorce calculator, and they want you to fill out a number of steps in this calculator, because then you'll at the end of it you'll find out how much a divorce is going to cost. But what they use is event tracking to find out exactly which fields you've filled out, so they know how far you've gone, and they can put a value on whether it's worth it, how far you've gone into the form. So there's lots of different ways of using it. Any questions at all so far? Please do ask. Are we all ready to restart? I'm going to assume that's a yes. So let's go back to my screen. So I'll move on from goal and event tracking. Hopefully it's made sense. The next step is keyword planning. So we all well and good this, but we now need to work out what our keywords are, what people are typing into Google, and what we're going to pay. What keywords are we going to pay for? So I think I gave this example earlier. That 50-inch flat screen TV. We had a client that approached us from the States, and this is going back several years, and they wanted to be at the top of Google for gift ideas. And we said, well, okay, that's great. And yes, we can see that you'd get 3 million local monthly searches. This was US data at the time, 5 million global searches for gift ideas. But to get to the top of Google for that is going to be really competitive. And are you going to convert people? So we started looking at other keywords, and one of the keywords that we found was retirement gift ideas for women. Now, it only had 1,000 local searches per month. But the reality is the intent, if someone's searching for retirement gift ideas for women, is that they're probably ready to buy. And if we can get them to a page where we're showing the perfect products for gift ideas for retirement for women, there's a high chance we're going to convert. What we also did was we Googled that phrase to see what the competition was like, and there was no other websites really at the time that were showing good, a decent page for that particular search term. So don't automatically think that you need to go for your top keywords, because they'll be expensive. There'll be lots of non-relevant traffic. And so this is about really trying to identify niche keywords, longer tail keywords. What we typically talk about is having up to 20 keywords in each campaign, which doesn't sound a lot, but what that ensures is that keywords are relevant, or adverts are relevant, and landing pages are relevant. So I'm just going to bring the chat box up because I've forgotten to do that, and just in case any of you have any questions. Okay, I've got that there. Great. So there's different keyword tools you could use. The best one to use is Google Keyword Planner. So here you instinctively put sort of 5, 10, 15 keywords that you want to be found for in Google. Google then shows you lots and lots of different keywords that are related, that it thinks that you could bid on. It shows you the competition. It shows you how competitive the keywords are, as in how many people are bidding for these keywords, or not how many, but how competitive it is, and the average cost per click as well, CPC, cost per click. But there's lots of other tools that you could use as well. So on this page, I've just shared some of those tools with you. And yes, actually, I know I've talked about just 20 keywords per campaign, but it's around having hundreds, if not 1,000 or so keywords in overall, and then having lots of specific adverts for all those different keywords. So these tools help you come up with different keywords. Let's just talk about the campaign planning. So inside an AdWords account, you've got what they call campaigns, you've got ad groups, you've got keywords, you've got adverts. Okay, and ideally, the magic number, and I know this doesn't quite show it, but the magic number is to have 3 ad groups in each campaign and 3 adverts in each ad group. So that's a lot of adverts and a lot of ad groups, and potentially a lot of campaigns. Now you might be thinking, well, we just sell this widget and that's all we sell, or we just sell this service and that's all we sell. But I take you right back to all the different types of audiences, all the different times of day, all the different devices. You're seeing parts of spreadsheet over the slide. My spreadsheet. It shouldn't be. Just let me check. Whoops. Oh gosh. I'm just going to stop sharing for just 1 second. Okay, can everyone just see the spreadsheet? Sorry, can everyone just see the slides? Let's double check. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, great, thank you. Okay, so I know this slide doesn't show it perfectly, but inside each campaign, you might have 3 groups. You might have 3 adverts per group as well. So what I was saying was this could be a huge amount of work, but it takes you back to the return on investment and thinking about the different types of people, thinking about their intent, their device, their location, their time of day, and ultimately testing all of this against each other. And by the way, if you do outsource this is what a decent agency would be doing. And this is again the challenge. So you could be asking, what are the different campaigns you've set up, what are the different ad groups, etc., etc. Gay's asking, what's the average SME spend per ad campaign? Well, I mean, that's really difficult. What you tell me what an average SME is, full stop, never mind how much they're spending on Google AdWords. I don't think there is an average SME. I mean, even the word SME is small to medium, and that could be just a huge array. I think in better answer to the question, I would suggest that spending less than £400 or £500 a month on an entire AdWords account is not going to give you enough data and not going to convert what you want. So I would say as a minimum, I would say you need to be spending a good £400 or £500 as an absolute minimum. So I mean, there's no average. We do campaigns, people are spending 1,500 quid, and we've got some that are spending hundreds of thousands. So it really, there's no answer to that question, except the minimum I'd say is probably around the £400, £500 mark. And then for someone to run it, I guess an average cost, I know that people will run it for maybe 100 quid, 150 quid, 200 quid. I would imagine they're not doing 80% of what I'm talking about in these slides today. I would imagine that they're doing a very basic campaign with no high chance of ROI. I would say for a decent agency, you're probably looking at a minimum of £300 account management a month, probably more like 400, maybe a tiny bit more. But I'd say an average is probably £400 a month for a decent agency to manage a campaign. And this is the sort of stuff that they should all be doing. And if they're not, then they're not the right agency. So hopefully that answers some of your question. Gay. So those are that's how an AdWords account might look. And let's just give you a bit more detail here. So let's take a garden centre as an example. And I totally get that, you know, some of you are selling B2B and services but all of this is exactly the same. And, you know, you might just sell one service. Well, think about it in different ways. How would different types of people describe it? How would different audiences, what would different audiences be typing into Google? How would they be looking for that service in different ways? That would be the key thing, really. But let's take a garden centre as an example. Here they've got 3 different campaigns. So we've got one campaign for seeds, another campaign for roses, another campaign for outdoor buildings. Within the seeds campaign, they've got the different types of seeds. So we've got ad group 1 for flowers, ad group 2 for grass seeds, ad group 3 for vegetable seeds. Within that, they'll have 3 adverts for each as well. So for the flower seeds, they'll have 3 different adverts. For the grass seeds, 3 different adverts, and so on and so on. So hopefully that just gives you a bit of a flavor on how you could split up the campaigns. Here's just a slide just to try and get across some of these points, and just to you can refer back to this slide, but ultimately it's saying split each campaign into ad groups, give each campaign an appropriate name. I mean, that's really important as well. So when you start analyzing this in Google Analytics, or in Google AdWords, what you really want to ensure is that you can very quickly look at different campaigns and understand exactly what they were and what they were doing. So it's really important that you've got, we've got Miriam saying the display's gone funny again. Yes, I've got that too. Ooh, how strange. I do apologize. Let me just make sure I've got nothing running in the background. Let me just quit a couple of things that shouldn't be there. Bear with me a second. Don't save. And good old Zoom giving us a few technical problems. Right, let me share that again. Okay, hopefully that's better. It's like the parts of the previous slide is sitting on the current one. Ah, perfect. Okay. Let me know if it goes again, and I really do apologize. Fine now, cool. So yeah, naming campaigns is really good thing to do, and you can pull. So whilst you can pull data into Google Analytics, so one of the things I talked about earlier was creating goals inside Google Analytics. One of the most important things to do, by the way, is once you've done that, is to import them into Google AdWords, because the two don't talk to each other unless you tell them to. So you'd create the goals in Google Analytics, and then you go to Google AdWords and say import the goals into here, and then you can match them against campaigns. Likewise, you can pull data from Google AdWords into Google Analytics. So you can switch that connection on. But what you need to do there is make sure that you've named the campaigns correctly, so that you can instantly just look at the name of a campaign and know exactly what that is, know the type of keywords, the type of user, etc., etc. So only have one theme per campaign. Try for at least 3 ad groups per campaign, and each ad group should have one common theme within the ad group as well. So that's just something to refer back to. The ideal campaign should only have one goal. So what is it you're trying to achieve? And as I said, they should be manageable and have probably only around 20 keywords. And ad groups should ideally have 3 adverts. So how are you going to split up campaigns? How are you going to split up ad groups? What are your adverts going to say? We'll cover adverts in a minute. What are they going to drive people to do? So again, if we go back to earlier in the webinar, we talked about the different things that we might want the user to do. And what are the settings that you're going to have? So within AdWords, there's loads of different settings. tons of settings. Some of those settings are around location. Some of them are around devices. Some of them are around match types, which we're going to cover shortly. And some of them are around days and times. So on locations, as I've indicated earlier, you might want to do a Glasgow campaign versus a Manchester campaign. You might want to do a UK campaign versus a US campaign. You might want to only do a UK campaign. You might want to only do a 20-mile radius campaign. Have you set location? That's the key thing. Or have you discussed that with the people that's running your account? What location is being used? What's been set? Devices. Are you showing it to all devices? Mobile, desktop, tablet? Or have you got mobile versions or desktop versions? Match types I'll come on to in a minute. That's to do with the keywords, a very important part of this, but too difficult to explain without some slides, so I'll show you that in a minute. Days and times. Have you got different adverts at the weekend? Are you running adverts at the weekend? Do you want to be promoting callers on a Sunday at 3 o'clock when no one's going to answer the phone? So do you want a different type of advert at the weekend, or do you just not want to run adverts at the weekend? Some people have this instinct, by the way, that we won't run it over the summer because we're never busy over the summer. Or we're not going to run it on Christmas Day because there's no chance that anyone will want us on Christmas Day. The thing to bear in mind with pay-per-click is that you only get charged if someone searched for you and clicked through. So don't assume that people aren't searching for you and clicking through on days and times that you haven't considered. More so, think about their intent and think about what you could offer them on those days or times. Because the chances are there's actually still a lot of search volume out there on these days or times. And so, but the instinct on most business owners is to turn it off. My advice is to have it on, but make sure the messaging is right. Make sure you understand the intent and make sure that you send them to the right place to get that conversion. So how are you going to split up the campaigns? So we've covered this. So that was the days and times. Let's talk about the match types. So match types is the actual keywords, the phrases themselves. And if you are using AdWords Express, this is where it all goes wrong, because AdWords Express will only ever use broad match. So on the left-hand side, you've got the types of different matches that you can have on a keyword or key phrase. Keyword, key phrase is the same thing, no different. So we've got broad match modifier, phrase match, and exact match. And what we do is we use these special symbols in red to tell AdWords what type of match we want. So let's just look at some examples here. So on a broad match, if we use the example of women's hats, then someone searching by ladies' hats would trigger the advert because it's similar to women's hats. By ladies' hats would trigger an advert. A broad match modifier is where you say, well, okay, anything, but it has to have those keywords. So we use a plus sign. So it has to have the word women and it has to have the word hats. So now, for example, hats for women would trigger a search. A phrase match is where we want that particular phrase to be within the entire phrase. So here it must be women's hats, and the example search by women's hats would trigger the advert. An exact match is where it has to match exactly. And we use the square brackets around the keyword, the key phrase, to say to Google, it has to be an exact match. Let me show you where this can go wrong. So on this next slide, on a broad match, let's say you sell wedding cakes. On a broad match, actually, Google would trigger an ad where someone's typed in crab cakes. Now, the reason being is that cake is in the other phrase, crab cakes, as well. Also, birthday cake ideas. So imagine you only sell wedding cakes, but all of a sudden you're getting traffic for people searching birthday cake ideas, wedding dress online, and crab cakes. If you're doing AdWords Express, I would suggest that the majority of your money is being wasted as it's going on broad match. Whereas with what someone called the proper AdWords, you'd really be using modified, broad, phrase, or exact. I tend to use modified broad in a lot of our campaigns. We might start with broad very early on for maybe a week or so, because what broad does is it allows you to get a load of data quickly. All of the every single thing that someone searches, Google tracks, so we can look at that afterwards, and it's something called the search term report, and it's one of the things that most people don't look at after they've been running adverts. There's something called the search terms report, and if you Google that, you'll find out where to find it in Google AdWords. And what you can also do is you can schedule it to send you automatically, maybe once a week, every Monday, an Excel sheet of the search term report, and that shows you every single keyword that's triggered an advert, which advert it triggered, and which campaign it triggered, which campaign it was part of. So it's called the search terms report. I would be asking to see that if I was outsourcing this. I'd be asking to see that on a weekly or monthly basis. If I was running a campaign, I'd be looking at it on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. You can learn a huge amount from there. Now, what you could do is you could start with broad match only for a week or so, waste some money, but what you're doing is you're buying data. So you're starting to understand what Google's showing adverts for and what people are typing in. You can then take some of those broad match keywords and start turning them into modified broad, phrase, exact. Within a few weeks, you should have no broad match at all, depending on what you sell, depending on what your services are. And depending on how much budget you've got, you probably shouldn't have any broad running later on. Did we have another question? No. Okay. Excuse me. So any questions on the match types? All making sense? Please do ask questions all the way through. If I've not covered something yet that you want covering, now's your time to make sure I cover it. So please mention it. Okay. So these are the different types of match types. And as I said, we use the pluses, we use the inverted commas, or we use the square brackets to define to Google which ones we're wanting to use. Let's look at the adverts. So here's an advert. There's lots of things that you can integrate into adverts. Oh, Maddie, do we just type the symbols where we input the keywords? Yes, exactly that. So exactly that. So you'd, yeah, no difference. Yeah, exactly where you put the keywords. Let's look at the adverts. So there's lots of things you can integrate into adverts. Here is some examples. So here we can see how a star rating has been integrated. So reviews have been integrated. You can integrate reviews if you wanted to. They've also integrated their address, their location. They've also integrated some other what we call site links. So in the top one, you can see free car valuation and branch locator are clickable links to other areas of their website. So there's lots of different things you can integrate into adverts. Let's just look a tiny bit more at adverts. So this is about making things as relevant as possible. And we're going to be talking about quality score and how actually it's not the one that bids the most that gets to the top of Google. And that's something to bear in mind. You can actually bid lower than someone else and get to the top of Google. It's all about the quality and the relevancy of your adverts and how well they're working as well. So from a sort of step back point of view, an advert, it should have the keyword in it. So if I search for a particular keyword, that keyword needs to be in that advert. If I don't see that keyword as a user, the chance of me clicking is really low. So it needs to be relevant. The page I'm taken to, so in that green, the URL, again, needs to feel relevant. I need to feel that when I'm clicking that link, I'm going to a deep part of your website that is going to have exactly what I'm looking for. At the same time, there's no point pretending and taking me to somewhere that you think is going to do the job, but it's not. So it's got to be authentic as well. It's got to work, because quality score can really go for or against you. Quality score is understanding the relevance of the advert and how well it works. And again, it's another metric that most people are unaware of or don't look at. And quality score is fully available in your AdWords account. I'm going to talk about it quite a bit over the next few minutes. or a few slides. But I'm going to keep coming back to it because it's one of the most important metrics. And a low quality score means you've got to pay more for your adverts. A high quality score means you pay less for your adverts. But the other thing is, Google actually actively doesn't want to show adverts that have a low quality score. So you could still be paying top whack and still Google doesn't show your adverts. Of course, Google wants to make money, but at the same time, to ensure that it's going to continually make money and continually get people like me clicking adverts, it's got to make sure that they're relevant. Because if I start getting peed off with Google, then I'm going to go somewhere else. So Google has to keep ensuring that the value's there, that the adverts are relevant. And so if it doesn't like them, it's not going to show them. And at the same time, you can determine whether you're going to spend less on them as well. So back to basics. We need to see keywords in the adverts. We need to feel like we're going to be taken to the right part of the website. Now, that doesn't mean you have to change the URL of the actual page of your website, by the way. What's here is what we call a vanity URL. So this is what the user sees. Nutella crepe recipes is what I would see as a user. Actually, when I click through, I might be taken to a URL that has different words in. As long as it's taking me to something that's relevant, that's fine. But the URL on the website doesn't need to be changed, is what I'm trying to say. But you've got the beauty of being able to use keywords in the URL on the advert itself. It needs to have benefits in the adverts. Don't start thinking about the features of your product or your service. What really I want to see is solving my pain points, my problems. And if I can see you solving my problems or see the benefits, then I'm much more interested in clicking through. And people are sheep. Tell them what to do and they'll do it. So put a call to action in the advert. What do you actually want me to do? You know, click, click, call, download. What is it you're wanting me to do? So those are the adverts. Let's just give some more examples. So going back to that garden centre. Here we've got 3 different adverts. So they're all selling garden sheds. They've all got the keywords in, but you can see how they're using different benefits. And you can also see how they're using different phrases on the headline. So one, we've got garden shed sale, cheap garden sheds. Also deeper, they've thought about some of the other keywords that might trigger some of these different adverts as well. What you can do here is, of course, you can test them. So it might be that you get a much better conversion rate on cheap compared to not having the word cheap in, or it might be the other way around. So these are just some examples of how you could test adverts and how you could use different words within them. Here's some do's and don'ts. Again, you can come back to this slide if you're wanting to at any time. So what's right on the left-hand side? We've got a headline that focuses on the product. It contains relevant keywords. The description's got benefits in it. It's got the next day delivery. The description includes an instruction, so the call to action, buy online. The destination URL has got that keyword in it, / climbing roses. On the right-hand side, we haven't got the keyword. The description's really general, and the URL doesn't take me to something where I feel it's going to deliver exactly what I want. And that's just some very simple ways on how to get people to click your advert. There's an amazing preview tool. So this is, I'm just going to have to change my share for a moment. So let's just share, where's it gone? Bear with me. Go to the desktop and we'll share that. Okay, so this tool here, I don't know how you pronounce it, Karuya. Google it, and you'll get to and Google expanded text ad preview tool. Karuya expanded text ad preview tool. This is a really, really great tool to be able to have a look at what your adverts are like, but it also is a great tool for me to show you all the things that you can integrate with the advert and all the different, and you'll be amazed at some of the things that you can add onto your advert. So we've got the URL that we're taking people to. So, you know, that was the seeds page or whatever. We've got our headline. We've got the our different headlines. We've got the vanity URL descriptions. And on the right-hand side, you start seeing the advert. So we've got a standard text advert and we've got a mobile advert here. And what we can do is we can click these boxes to add different things. So without that, we've just got the advert, but then we could add site links. And that shows us how we could add some other links to different parts of our website, depending on understanding the intent, understanding the user, time of day, what they've searched. Maybe they're just at the looking for more information stage. Maybe we want to offer them a few different things. We can also add call extensions. So these are sort of like the benefits. We can highlight things. We can highlight additional benefits. So these are what we call call out extensions. We've also got a call extension. So we can add a phone number here. And that's clickable, trackable, and we can add that call extension. You've got message extensions. So got question sends us a text, very handy for a mobile ad. We've got location extensions where we can put the address. We can show our ratings. So we've got our reviews. We've got different, depending on your website and depending on what you sell, you might have some structured data that you want to bring across. And we've also got prices that we can add as well. So there's a huge array of stuff. And what's not obvious when you're in Google AdWords is how all this works. But what I find is that this tool, and that's the desktop version, by the way, at the top there, what I find is that this tool helps me think about all the different things and helps me think about what they might look like as well. And what you can do within Google AdWords is you can add what your different site links are, what your different call out extensions are, and then per campaign, you can say, well, okay, on this campaign, I want to use these. On this campaign, I want to use these. And it's sort of once you've added them, it's sort of a pick and mix, and you can define it across the entire ad account, or you can define it across a particular ad group or a particular ad campaign, or even down to just a particular advert. So there's a number of different ways of controlling all of this in Google AdWords. What's not obvious is how it all works. What I find is this tool helps you understand it and gets to understand the terminology, gets to understand how it looks as well. Just see if we've got any questions. Is this helping people? We've only got 20 minutes left. How are we doing? Is this helping? Yes or no? Put some yeses or nos in the chat. Definitely. Even better. Okay, good. Yes, loads. Good. We've got no no's, so that's quite good, isn't it? This is really helpful. Excellent. Okay, cool. We're doing well. Let's go back to the slides. So hopefully you can see the slides. If there's a problem, let me know. So that's the preview tool. Here, oh, hold on a second. Right, okay, so things to think about. One of the things that really works that we found is capitalizing each word. Now, you wouldn't normally do that, but for some reason, it really works and it increases click-through rates. So capitalize each word. Match keywords, think about the different types of keywords, think about how you can, the different match types. What are the hooks and pain points? What are the benefits? How are you going to solve my problem? What's the intent? What are you trying to get me to do? Are you going to use site extensions, call out extensions, call extensions? Are you going to get me to use these things? And what are they? So I sort of seem to keep saying that this is an important bit, and this bit's really important. But this bit's really important. It's all important if you want that return on investment. If you want it to work, it's really important. And what you find is that, again, a lot of people don't consider the page that you're taking people to. They don't think about the conversion on that page. And they just think, I'll just take them to our homepage. I'll just take them to our product page, our service page. If you want it to work, investing in some decent landing pages can really make a big difference. And here's just a flavor of what what I class as decent landing pages look like. So on the far left one, what you'll see is that the menu, there's no menu at all. And you've not got many options when you get there, except to fill out the form and click download. What typically works well is a nice headline, a clear call to action, maybe some bullet points, something quite striking, easy to understand. Everything's above the page fold. So as in, when we get to that page, we can see it instantly. We don't have to scroll down. What you don't want to see is a call to action that's lower down the page. We want to see it there and then. We want to see, take me to it straight away. Color can work really well. So on the right hand side, using the green can work really well. What are your landing pages? And the beauty of pay-per-click is you can have multiple landing pages for lots of different campaigns. So you can create adverts that are very relevant, very specific, and go to a very relevant landing page. And you could think, God, this is even more work. Actually, once you've got a couple of templates, it might be that you create 10 landing pages, but the only differences are maybe the image or maybe a couple of words to try and make it more sectorized. So for example, the example earlier I gave of school websites, it might be that I take you to a landing page that's got, a school looking website and mentions the word Ofsted, whereas if I took you to a legal landing page, we'd have a legal picture and mentions the word compliance. So it's just thinking about how you could, and that doesn't cost a lot because it's just a template. You copy it and you just change a word, change a picture. But the beauty of it is that it increases the conversion rate. So it's about having landing pages that have clear headlines, getting some kind of short, sharp testimonial on there. The use on the bottom left one, or sorry, the far left one, is they've got some logos that people might recognize. So recognizable brands, can that be part of your landing page? Could you get a quote from a customer and put that on a landing page? You need a form. Forms are a way to capture data. They're a way to track conversion. They're on a desktop, people are more likely to fill out a form than pick up the phone. Compared to mobile, they're more likely to, they're more likely to pick up the phone, although that does depend. But it's something that you need to try and test. You might have two different landing pages for the same advert. So there's loads of different combinations here. So most people fail at this. It fulfills the need. It's got to fulfill the need. It's got to have a very clear call to action, and you've got to really define what the user journey is. So understanding the intent, understanding what they've searched for, what do you think they need next? And let's be really clear about that, and let's take them through the process that you think is next for them. So we've done all of this, but the next biggie is bidding strategies. And sorry, Jill's just asked a question, actually. Landing page, always thought of this as a page on the website. If you have 10 plus, where would they be? Good question, Jill. So landing pages are typically only ever available to advert campaigns. So, or it might be, an email campaign. You might send them to a specific landing page. Landing pages are the difference with a website. Let's try and think about this for a moment. Okay. Imagine you are Marks and Spencer or Asda or Sainsbury's. You have a shop, everyone comes through the front door, and you can't really determine where they're going to go. You can put signposts up, you can understand where they normally go, you can put offers up, but you can't take them to the bread aisle right at the back unless they want some bread. You know that the majority of people want bread and therefore they're going to go to the back, but you can't actually take them to the back. A website is like a big supermarket. A landing page is, the intent of the user. You know what exactly they've searched, and you're going to take them to that specific thing. And you're going to take all distractions away, and you're going to give them a very clear path and clear journey to do exactly what you want them to do. What's that goal? What's the thing you're trying to get them to do? So if they've searched bread, I want a seeded loaf, you're going to take them to the seeded loaf page and you're going to take everything else away. You're going to remove any distractions. You're going to remove the TVs and the whatever else that you might be also selling, and you're going to take them to the bread. You want a loaf of bread? Click here, you'll get it straight away. And that, I guess, is a really simple analogy. I'm not sure if it's the best analogy in the world, but it's a simple analogy on how landing pages can really work. And you can take them direct to a page. You strip everything, a bit like, if you think about it, I mean, do some testing, do some Googling, and click an advert compared to their natural listing, and you'll see that lots of companies have very different pages, tend to be a lot more distracting, a lot less distracting, a lot more focused, a lot more click here, and the best ad campaigns have very different landing pages. They still sit on your website, but they're not available. They're not in the menu. They're not discoverable unless you've got the link to get to it, and that's where you'd use that link within the ad campaign. And I was going to say something, but it's gone. Yeah, hopefully that's answered your question. So bidding strategies, we've done all of this, but this next bit, I must admit, is complicated, and it's again why people outsource or why people use AdWords Express. But please don't use AdWords Express. Bidding strategies can be a bit complicated. To remove the complication, you need to ensure that you put tracking, that you put your goals in place, that you make it very clear to Google what it is you're trying to get people to do. That can make bidding strategies a lot easier. Emma's just asked a good question. Do you need to stop the Google Spider thing from finding landing pages? The answer is yes. So you're absolutely right. From an SEO point of view, you would hide them from Google so you can no index them, or you can add them into your robot.txt and disallow them so that Google can't see them. You're right, it could be seen as duplicate content. So they're hidden pages on your website that you openly say to Google, don't index this. It's not for your index, your organic index. We're just using it for a pay-per-click campaign, basically. So yeah, you can do that through your robot.txt file, or you can add a meta robots tag onto the page that says don't index this page. But a really good question, Emma, thank you. So bidding strategies, this is an auction, but it comes to the relevancy, because relevancy trumps bids. So this is back to that quality score. It's all about quality score. It's about the landing page experience. This is how Google measures quality score. This is really frustrating for me, because what you find is that when you go into an AdWords account, the quality score column is not shown by default. You have to turn the quality score column on. Google how to see quality score within an AdWords account. And what you'll see is that each keyword or advert keyword has a quality score, or advert keyword. I've forgotten for a moment. Each item has a quality score, and what you're aiming for is a minimum. It's out of 10. What you're aiming for is a minimum of 5 out of 10. The lower it is, the more expensive your adverts will be, and the less likely they'll be to be shown. The higher it is, Google will show your adverts way more and for cheaper prices, irrelevant of how much other people are bidding. So how does Google measure quality score? There's 4 different factors. The first factor is landing page experience. So when I get to the landing page, Google can see what happens on your website. When I get to the landing page, what do I do? Do I do the goal? Do I click the button? Because if we tell Google what you're trying to get people to do, and Google's seeing people doing it, they're going to like that experience. So they're going to base it on the time someone spends on that page, the actions they perform, what they do afterwards. Do they click the back button? If they click the back button, Google doesn't like that. Google puts that against you. It goes against your quality score. So if people click the back button, it's because it wasn't relevant, it wasn't right. You've got them there under false pretenses. It's not giving them what they were expecting. It's not giving them what they're wanting. So this can really affect your quality score. The ad relevance, that's around the keywords in the advert. So someone searches for pink elephants. Do you talk about pink elephants in that advert? If not, it's not very relevant. What's the expected click-through? Google's got some idea of how many people should be clicking your adverts. are people clicking your adverts? And this is based on previous as well. So it'll look at previous data, and as your account grows, it'll keep comparing, and are things getting better? Are things getting worse? And that's again how quality score is scored. So the more clicks you get compared to last week, last month, the more the quality score increases. And it's also, they also look at historical quality score as well, to understand where you've been in the past. So those are just some of the things you need to consider on increasing those quality scores. You've then got the different types of bids. So let's bring the chat back up just in case. Okay, so you've then got the different kinds of bids. On the left-hand side, you've got manual bid strategies. On the right-hand side, you've got automated bid strategies. And this, you know, is reasonably complex. What we're talking about here is the cost per click, or the cost per acquisition. How much are you going to be paying Google for these adverts? So manual, well, I don't advise that unless you really know what you're doing. You're basically saying, you know, I want to spend X amount on this particular keyword. Now, unless you've got some very good knowledge, that probably won't work. So manual, but that's certainly one way. And for experts, it's a very good way, by the way. And you can have the option on the manual side of enhanced cost per click, which basically says to Google, look, I'm doing it manually, but I will give you permission to increase my bid by 20% up or down, or decrease my bid by 20% based on data that you know. So Google might know that if this type of person Googles this type of keyword on this type of device at this time of time, Google knows that actually if you increase that bid by 20%, we'll get you clicks, or actually we can decrease that bid by 20% and we'll still get you clicks. So that can work really well. On the automated bid strategies, if you set your goals up and you make it very clear to Google what you're trying to achieve, then you can be very clever and you can say to Google, okay, my target is I want to get to this cost per acquisition. So I want someone to, this is, you know, if someone goes ahead, if someone clicks that lead form, then I'm prepared to pay this cost for it. You could target ROAS, return on ad spend. So I'm looking at a 4-to-1 ratio, for example, for every £400 spent, for every £100 spent, I want £400 back, for example. You could automate it to get the most clicks, the most conversions. You could target search page location. You could want to be purely, we want to rank brand. We want to be there wherever anyone searches. We don't care how much it costs. We don't care about conversion. We want to make sure that when anyone searches credit card, we're going to dominate and be visible. And so that would be target outranking share. Costs a lot of money. Doesn't necessarily mean you get the highest conversion. Enhanced cost per click is what I've already described, where you can automate it and you can put limits on as well. And the last one is target impression share. So you can see that, you know, for this particular keyword, we get 20% of the adverts are ours. Maybe we want to target that to be 30% or 40%, but of course that all costs money. So there's different bidding strategies. It's quite complicated. What you'll find is at the end of this, I've got some real good resources to help you get through this and to help you understand it more, because it is difficult to explain until you start doing it. And these resources will really help you. Tracking and reporting. So very simply, we've already talked about goals and events. Make sure that you've got those set up in Google Analytics. Make sure that you've connected Google Analytics to AdWords. Make sure you've connected it the other way around. Really important, that search terms report. I've already talked about it. Make sure that you find it in Google Analytics, in Google AdWords. Make sure that you look at it on a regular basis. It tells you exactly what you've spent on exactly what keyword. So, you know, if you sell wedding cakes and you look at the search terms report and all of a sudden you spent 20 quid yesterday on birthday cake ideas, right, well, you need to stop it and you need to change the from broad to exact or whatever else. One of the things we've not talked about, which it comes up on the next slide. And then quality scores, we've already talked about. It is at keyword level. It went out my mind for a moment. We've talked about the Google Analytics. The ROI is about putting values in. So, you know, I know for every form lead that I get, it's worth £10 to me or £30 to me, or whatever it might be. How can you make things better? So do more of what works, stop what doesn't work, look at increasing budgets and campaigns over time, be more targeted. I'm not sure why I've left negative keywords to this last slide, because it's just as important. So negative keywords is a way to say to Google, don't show my adverts if this word is used. So let's take the wedding cake example. I might look at the search terms report and I might see that we're triggering birthday cake adverts for some reason. I could add a negative keyword either across the entire account or the campaign to say, if anyone searches with the word birthday, don't show my advert. This works really well. For example, if you're, let's say you're a law firm and I'm looking for a law firm, great, your advert comes up. Let's say I'm looking to work in a law firm and I Google law firm jobs. Well, you probably don't want me to click £2 on your advert to get me to your website, unless you're trying to recruit, of course. So there's a lot of standard negative keywords that you might add to the account on day one. For example, the word job or jobs would be in there, because you don't want someone looking, unless you do, you probably don't want to pay for people just looking for jobs. So negative keywords are really good. Test adverts with at least 2 or 3 adverts in each group. Test landing pages, which sort of takes you just up a whole nother step. Key points: plan, research, think about the users, the intent, keep everything relevant. It's quality over quantity. Track, monitor, and review. A few tools that we've talked about: the Google Keyword Planner, Google Analytics, the I still can't pronounce it, the preview tool. If you really want to go up a step and you've got lots of budget, have a look at WordStream or Optio. And then this slide is, if you're really looking to do this yourself, then you probably need to look at these links, and they'll be available afterwards too. If you can't get them, I can send you the slides. I'm sure that they'll be shared out anyway. But if you're looking to do this yourself, then I would suggest having a look at these links to really help you go that step further. How we can help you: we do loads of different stuff. We don't just sell websites, we do pay-per-click campaigns. But the big call to action I've got for you, because I'd be wrong not to have a call to action, is we've set up a support group right now for during this COVID period, for people in business. It's a great place to network, great place to get support. If you just go onto Facebook, look for the Coronavirus Yorkshire Business Support Group, you'll find us. Welcome any more questions. I'm aware it's 12 o'clock. Managed to keep to time, because hopefully you've all asked questions all the way through. What Peter said. That's great, informative webinar for virtual classrooms. As a qualified optician with a family to support, do you ever have regrets on how move to more precarious world of social media? No, I was a qualified optician and I moved, and I wish I'd done it a lot earlier in my career. I love what I do, but yeah, thanks, Peter. So hopefully you found this useful, and if you do have questions, please do ask. There was a lot to take in, I fully understand, but I've given you those resources. If as I said, if you've got questions, ask. Look for me online. Happy to help anytime. I'll just grab a link so that you've got my details to find me. Super informative as always. That's very kind. Thank you. So that's me on LinkedIn if you want me, and that's the Facebook group. Great place to get help and support and networking as well. Rory, should I let you come back in?
Yeah, excellent. Well, fantastic session as always, Jonny. So thank you very much for that. It sounds like a really great feedback from all the attendees today in the chat box there. It's really great to see. Just a quick message from us is that we've got 2 webinars coming up. We've got that are taking place next week. We've got social media mistakes to avoid in 2020, presented by Amanda Dixon. That's on Tuesday, the 28th of July. And we also have a social media news roundup for July 2020 with Pascal Fantoni on Thursday, the 30th of July. I'll be sending information about this in the post-event email. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us. And until next time, we'll see you then. Thank you very much.
Look, thanks for having me. Lovely seeing you all. Have a great day.